This is Nadine with DIY Sweets. Today I'm going to show you another low-calorie dessert. This one is called Chocolate Decadence Cake. Rich on chocolate, rich on flavor, not rich on calories. Let's show you how to do it. The first thing I did is I turned the oven on and I preheated it to 350. Next I'm going to get my pan ready. I'm using a springform pan. If you don't have a springform pan, you can follow the directions in the recipe. But with my springform pan, the bottom comes out. So I don't want to put parchment paper in the bottom. What I am going to do is I'm going to spray down the bottom and the sides, because I'm going to use the bottom of this pan kind of as my cake plate and just cut it from there. So I'm using a spray that has the flour and the oil already there, and I'm just spraying it down really good. So now my pan is ready. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine my bittersweet chocolate and my unsweetened cocoa. I have my large mixing bowl here, and I'm just going to dump my unsweetened cocoa in there. And I'm just going to set this aside till I'm ready to put the hot stuff that I'm ready to make in. Before I go to the stove to make the hot stuff, I'm going to turn a pot of water on so that that can become boiling, so it will be ready when I'm ready to put the cake in the oven. I have my pan here. To this pan I'm going to add my flour, my Trivia, and my salt. To that I want to add just enough of the milk that as I whisk it I can get a nice paste. Now I'm going to turn the heat up to medium-high, and I'm going to whisk this while adding the rest of the milk. Now I'm going to switch my whisk out for a spoon. The recipe says to use a wooden spoon, but I prefer silicone better, so I'm going to use the silicone. I want to be stirring this constantly until it begins to bubble and it boils gently. Then I'll continue stirring for about 2 to 2.5 minutes until this gets very thick. So I'll be back when this is boiling and it has started to thicken. So that'll be at the end of that 2 to 2.5 minutes. So just keep stirring yours until it thickens, and then we'll be back. This hasn't quite started boiling, or it's just starting to boil, but you'll notice it's getting really thick. We're going to continue to stir it so that it can continue to thicken up. Now remember, we're supposed to stir this 2 to 2.5 minutes, but you're really judging it by when it becomes really thick. So you're stirring it till it's about the right consistency. And it's going to get very thick. You notice when I went like this, it's thick, but it's not very thick. So we want it to get really thick. We're stirring it so that that milk won't scald. Both on the sides, we're scraping the sides, and we're constantly scraping the bottom. We're going to take this now and pour it over that chocolate that we put in the bowl. Here's our chocolate, and now we're just going to scrape out the pan and get all of this into that chocolate. And now we want to stir this until all the chocolate's mixed in and melted and is smooth. But it is going to be very thick when we're done. because we're adding that rich, delicious chocolate to an already thick sauce. Still has some chocolate chunks in it, so I'm still stirring it. Notice though it is very, very thick. Now this stirring, number one is melting the chocolate. Number two, it is cooling it down so that when I put the egg yolks in there, they're not going to cook, because we don't want cooked egg yolks. And that is the next thing we're going to do. Once this is all mixed in and cooled enough, notice how that's becoming very smooth. It's not looking as grainy as it did because the unsweetened cocoa has dissolved into here. And that's what we were looking for. And touching that, it has cooled down quite a bit too. Now what we want to do is we want to take our 2 egg yolks and stir them in. So we're going to break them up as we stir them. This will thin the batter out a little bit, but it's still going to be very thick. And we also want to add the vanilla. That is all mixed in now. So we're going to set that aside. Now that that's been mixed up, we are ready to do the egg whites and get them nice into meringue type texture. For that, I want to use my stand mixer. You could use a hand mixer, but it's going to take more time. It's just, to me, a lot quicker to use the stand mixer. In our stand mixer, we're going to put the 3 egg whites. Now what I use for my egg whites is I use the 2 whites from the egg yolks, and then I use the processed egg whites that come in a carton to equal the last egg white, so I wouldn't have to waste a yolk. So I'm going to put the egg whites in there, and I'm going to put that cream of tartar in there. And I'm going to do this on medium speed. And I want to do it on the medium speed until I have soft peaks. So it's going to start looking white, but it's not going to be the stiff peaks yet. Once I get this to the soft peak stage, I'm going to put in that last bit of the trivia and bring it to the stiff peak. Starting to come together now. So what I want to do is just very slowly pour this in. I'm just going to put it at the edge so it goes in between the beater and the side of the bowl. And I just want to slowly pour that in. And then we want to bring this to a stiff peak. Now we want to bring this to a stiff peak, but we don't want it to start looking dry. So now notice, when I bring this down and then I stick that in, you notice that peak is not staying up. So it's not yet where we want it to be. So we're going to turn it back on and keep going. Okay, it's starting to dry out a little bit and it's starting to have some shape. So let's check this again. You'll notice that peak is staying up pretty well. So that's what we're looking for. We have our egg whites and we have our chocolate. What we want to do now is we want to put about 1/4 of this meringue into the chocolate. So I'm just going to put some in and I'm going to fold it. And I want to fold it until there's no white streaks left. I may have put a little bit more than 1/4 in, but that's okay. You don't have to be exact. So we're just folding this in because we want to keep this light and airy. We don't want to deflate those egg whites that we just whipped up. Notice the streaks are almost gone. Now that that's mixed in, we're going to scrape the rest of this egg whites into our batter and fold it in. So the first 1/4 was to lighten up the batter, and the rest of this is to just finish lighten it up and make it so that it's ready to cook. So now I'm just going to fold it like I did the other part. That means I'm going to go from the bottom to the top, bringing what's on the bottom up to the top, folding it into what's on top. And it's just a very gentle motion. This is not a big stir, it's just bringing what's at the bottom to the top. And we're going to keep doing this until there are no more stripes, white stripes in this. And it's basically the one color, which as you can see, it doesn't take too long to do that, because it's all but there now. Let me scrape the side here, bring it down and up. Now we're ready to bring our cake pan over here. Remember, we already sprayed this down. I didn't put the parchment paper in because this one has a removable base, and I wanted to use that as a plate, so I didn't want a parchment paper in there, but I did spray it down well. Now I'm going to take my bowl, and we're just going to scrape it into that pan. Get it all in the pan. With that in the pan, I want to make sure this cake is smooth, and I'm just going to gently tap it to make sure it's level. Now we want to put this cake pan into a larger pan. So I have a pan that is much larger than this pan. I'm going to stick that inside, and then we're going to put this in the oven and then pour water around this until it's about halfway up. And we want the water to be boiling. That's why in the recipe we called for boiling water. When the timer goes off, and I set it for 20 minutes, I'm going to check it, and I want it to cook until the surface of the cake is slightly crusted and it springs back when I gently press it. And that's usually about 20 to 25 minutes. Because this cake is still going to be gooey on the inside, so I don't want to stick a cake tester in because it would say it's not done. So I'm going to be touching it on the top to see if it springs back. So we'll be back in 20-25 minutes when that's ready. The timer's gone off, so we're going to open up the oven, and we are going to very carefully just pull this out. And you can see it's crusted over, and I want to tap it, and it is springing back nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of the oven, put it on a cooling rack, and it's going to cool for 2 hours. I'm going to let it cool for a couple of hours until this is at room temperature. Then I'm going to cover the top, and I'm going to stick it in the fridge till tomorrow. And then I'll be ready to show you how luscious this cake looks. Hi, we're back. It's the next day, and I've had this in the fridge chilling overnight. What I want to do now is I want to get it out of the pan. As you look at this, you can see it is already separated from the edge. So I'm not going to need to run a knife around the edge like the recipe says. If you're not sure if yours is separated, go ahead and do that. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up my pan and lift this off. And there is my cake, ready to be served. With this cake, when you cut it, you want to make sure that you are dipping your knife into water each time. Because remember, the inside is very, very moist. So let me show you how we do that. We're wanting to cut this into 12 equal pieces. For me, the easiest way to do that is to start by doing a cut down the middle. So I'm just going to take this and slice it down the middle. Now remember, you want to clean your blade off with each cut, because otherwise you're going to have a mess. Once I've cut it down the middle, I like to cut it then this way, so that I have 4 equal sections. Now that I have my 4 equal sections, it's very easy for me to be able to judge what 1/12 of this would be. Because each section is going to be divided into thirds. Now you'll notice I'm not perfect at cutting, so it's going to be a little bit off, but it's going to be fairly close. So on this one now I can eyeball it and just kind of mark it and know that it's going to be there and there. And I'm just kind of marking so I know when it's time to cut, where I'm going to cut. And you'll notice, because I am not that even, that some pieces are a little bit bigger than others. That's just how it works when I cut things. In fact, usually when we have family outings or family dinners and we have to cut, I will tell someone else to cut it. So you'll notice I marked that, and there you have your 12 pieces. Let me scoop one up and you will see that you're really getting a fairly good sized piece. But I'll even take it from the smaller side, so you can still see, well, it's a little bit smaller, it's still a very good piece. Because I've scored it, I'm just going to make both cuts and then bring this out to my plate. Now, if you chose to make the orange peels, which I didn't do, but you could do it, it's not that hard to do, you could put some on top, or you could have it just like this. Either way, it's going to taste wonderful. This is Nadine with DIY Sweets, and here is our chocolate decadence cake. Make one today to satisfy that chocolate craving.